Welcome to RTV Chit-Chat, Raising the Village's informal podcast. Raising the Village, or RTV, is a non-profit organization that partners with last-mile communities in rural Uganda to end ultra-poverty in our generation. I'm your host, Sila Alıcı, and I'm a part of RTV's small but mighty communications team. In this podcast, we will explore various topics about the work we do, have interesting conversations with our stakeholders, and share our experiences of working in partnership with last-mile communities. In this episode, we bring you a conversation about the importance of storytelling with Mudasirr Govule, RTV's communication officer in Kampala. We talk about Mudasir's experiences working as a communications person in the field and listen to a short interview he's conducted on the ground. Hi, Mudasirr. Thank you so much for joining me today. So can you tell me a little bit about what your typical week as a field communication officer at Raising the Village looks like for you?
Well, thank you very much for hosting me, Sila. My week as an individual basically involves a lot of field work. The field work involves identifying success stories, impact stories, and then sometimes I also do design. And I do this with the support of the technical team. I mean, the implementation team, which is spread out in the many districts that we operate in. And it's these people that help me identify some of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how often do you travel?
Well, I travel at least 2 weeks in a month, and I make sure that I maximize that time to identify as many stories as I can. Sometimes I attend workshops, trainings, and then I travel every month to a different location.
Yeah, sounds like you have a busy schedule. You mentioned you spend a lot of time in the field interacting with our partner communities for all of these stories. And from what I've learned, Uganda's culture is amazingly diverse, right? So how do you make sure that the stories that you're telling are properly represented?
Uganda has very many cultures. It's one of the most diverse communities in the world, with more than 50 tribes speaking different languages. But at least we have some of what we consider official languages, and that is English, Luganda, and then Swahili. At least if you go to any community, at least you'll find someone who can speak at least English or Luganda or Swahili somewhere. Yeah, because Swahili is the East African language. It's spoken in Kenya, it's spoken in Tanzania, it's spoken in Rwanda. So even Uganda, many people know it a bit. Recently I was in Kisoro. They speak Rufumbira there. Rufumbira is almost like Kenya-Rwanda because they border Rwanda. So the language they speak is so close to French, and I have no knowledge of French. So it's very hard, for someone who has never stayed there to know the language. So in such scenarios where I'm completely cut off, I can't hear a word or two, I normally resolve to working with the project officers to help me understand what the beneficiaries are saying. Sometimes you meet government officials, and for them they are okay with English. But our last mile community people, you'll find that most of them speak the local language. You always have to work with our community-based staff.
Are there any local languages that you speak?
Yes, I speak quite many local languages. Yeah, I speak the most spoken language there, which is Runyankole in Western Uganda. I mix them. I don't even know sometimes whether my workmates from the field, they normally correct me. No, you're speaking Rutoro to Munyankole. You're speaking this to this. So sometimes they teach me a few words here and there, but at least I know some of the languages.
That is definitely a good quality to have when you are interacting with so many diverse communities, right? It really enhances your ability to make long-lasting connections. I guess it helps people open up to you in their local language instead of having a translator there, you know.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I have to ask John, who is one of our field officers there, to like tell me how they greet, like the simplest thing of greeting. Once you mention any word in their local language, they feel like you're part of them on an instant. Yeah, they like respond and then start saying other things, and then you're like nodding. But yeah, it's really fun. These different languages, it's just the languages, but the rest of the cultures are really more like the same. You'll find that people are really humble. They are very welcoming, and I don't think there's any community where I've visited and they've been hostile and they didn't want us to come. All across the areas where we operate, people are generally kind and very welcoming when we are doing our work. And I think that's one thing that is really helping Raising the Village to operate and succeed in these areas. But most of the communities where we operate, people are really kind, and it's a culture that is spread across.
Thank you for sharing that. Exactly. I think a really, really big part of our work as the communications team at RTV and as communication people in general is to engage with these communities and to produce these stories. And I guess another question at this point to ask would be, why do you think producing these stories are important? What kind of a value is there in, creating these stories in collaboration with the communities that we interact with?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very good question. Why I think telling these stories is really important. There is a saying where they say, when it's not written or captured in a camera, it's never happened. Yeah. So stories are a really important element in any program or project. I think another thing, telling these stories helps us really get to understand the people that we are working with. One of the reasons why we tell these stories is it tells a lot of people the bigger picture of our work. Because if you tell someone what we do is wash, agriculture, community development, it's very hard for them to understand it without like telling a story. Sometimes, like, there are many people who would easily understand if like you put a face to a particular program, and then that one face like becomes representative of the whole program or that particular project. Like, it's easier for many audiences to digest this information when it's told in a good story format.
And I'd like to highlight that as a communications team and as storytellers, I think what we're really trying to do is to provide a platform for these stories to be heard and to be elevated, because what we're doing is really, at the end of the day, is highlighting the stories and the hard work and the resilience of the people that we meet on the ground. Okay, so Mudasirr, I know that you're based in Kampala, and our implementation teams, as you sort of mentioned before, they're stationed within their own districts of operation. So you travel to all of these different districts of operations, and now I want to hear a bit more about some of your personal experiences traveling to these last mile communities. Are there any interesting stories or like anecdotes that you'd like to share with us about these travels?
Okay, so I really enjoy doing my work. First of all, it's fun to like interact with a lot of people, telling different stories. Much as our goal is one, to end ultra poverty, very many people have different stories. So listening to them alone, it can get you emotional sometimes, but some stories are really interesting. Right from home, when I'm preparing to go to the field, like when I'm assembling my camera, my lens, my notebook, unpacking my bag, I do it with the utmost fun. You should see me, like, I have all my bags packed 2 days before I'm going to travel, just to make sure that I don't miss anything. So there's this one time when I was out in the field, we had a flat tire in one of the hard to reach areas. Some of the roads that we go in are really bad. So you cannot, the drivers in most cases will tell you, I don't think I can ever come here if I don't have a spare tire. And it's really for the right reasons. So there's this one particular time where we had a flat tire and I have never changed the tire. And there are also moments where the car is not there and we use, let's say, a motorbike, a motorcycle. In such cases, we are provided with safety gadgets and a helmet and gloves. There are instances where the community you're going to is really, really deep and far in this. And most of the roads that we work in, you won't find any village that we work in that has a tarmac road. Most of them are dusty roads. So here we are on a bike and you're on a dusty road. Yeah, you never notice how much dust you like ride through until you park. So you put off your helmet and then only to realize that your whole body is like covered in dust. Your pants, your bag, you have to like dust them. And sometimes you can see the community people giggle a little and they're like, yeah, because it really looks funny.
That's a nice little connection to have with the people that you sort of see on and off. It's a little inside joke you have to laugh about whenever you are there and they're greeting you, right?
Yeah. So there's also this one particular time where we reached a road that had flooded. We had a bike which we had to park, and we used the boat to like cross the road. And we had to stop. There are these canoe people, generous people who brought their canoes to like help people cross. I think I shared with you some pictures with that. The road was completely cut off. There's no way you would pass there with a bike. It would totally go off. Really, I found it adventurous.
But yeah, it shows what we really mean by last mile, right? It sort of accentuates how hard it is to navigate through these terrains and how really far away some of these communities are from, the most basic services.
Some of the last mile communities that, like you mentioned, have almost next to zero services. I think as a storyteller, when you read like a certain story or when you're told a story, I think one of the most important things that I find really interesting when I'm out in the field is those different stories that I collect. We might be doing like the same program in District A, District B, but the stories are all different. So that's a really very, very important thing to note. They are inspiring in their own way. They are hopeful in their own way. Like, so there's this one particular place where we went in, where I was in Kisoro still. And what happened, we were driving in one of the last mile communities. Kisoro is one of the most hilly places. It's very beautiful. I think when you go there, when you ever go there for like field work, and you've never seen like a very hilly place, like you literally go around hills to like go to a particular point. You can literally see a point where you're going, but to reach there, like you have to go around hills. So so we were sort of driving around this crater lake, and then I asked the field officer about it. I thought it was a beautiful scenery, but it had a sad story behind it. While I was there, I think among the recordings that I had, this chat recorded with John. I think we can share it with the rest of the world.
So let's listen to it now.
Right now I'm in Kisoro, and we just came across a lake, and I presume it looks like a crater lake. It's a tiny lake with small boats. I see some people fishing. John, can you tell us more about this lake and this village?
Thank you. Here we are in Murora sub-county, and Murora sub-county is vast with two lakes, which are called Kayumbu and Chahaf, and they are like twins. So there is a fishing activity taking place, and these lakes were formed as a result of volcanicity, and we normally call them lava dammed lakes. So and most often they were very much productive in the past, but these days the fish species are reducing. So actually the communities are worried because they can't have enough to fish.
Okay, so what you're saying that initially this lake was a source of income for the community, but right now there are fish species that are finishing the income generating fish types. That is the widely known tilapia and the local fish. So what are they resulting to now, the people in this sub-county?
Yeah, because their main activity was fishing around these two lakes, and now that they are no longer productive as they used to be, many have resorted to go to look for income elsewhere. But government has been coming in to support them to have other alternative source of income. However much they are saying it is not enough to sustain them, because they look at this is the most being productive thing, and they request the government if they can put in the more fish, then the better, because that's where they used to have their livelihood.
Okay, you mentioned the government coming in to intervene, and I understand Raising the Village is working with the government to make sure that these villages are back and economically self-reliant. What are some of the things that you're doing with the government right now?
Yeah, thank you. We are providing support to the government because they can't have enough resources. So we are coming in to support by communities by giving them seeds. We provided them with pigs for households so that they can boost their income. We are also doing health outreach because health is the first priority for every member to be productive. We are also providing them with safe water, where most of these villages that are near the lake, some of them they go for fetch in the lake, and this water is not good for them. So that's what we are trying to do with them together with the government.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
We want to thank John for doing this interview with you. Another way to show how important the relationship between communications officers and field officers are. They really help us understand better some of the issues specific communities like this one that you traveled to is faced with. I want to slowly wrap up by talking a little bit more about this internal relationship between communications staff and field officers, because I know that a couple of weeks ago during some of your field visits, you were conducting workshops on storytelling specifically designed for RTV staff. And what I want to ask you is, why do you think it's important for other teams who aren't necessarily a part of the communications department to know what storytelling is about or what it is?
Okay, thank you. I think, like I had mentioned earlier on, there's no way you can tell a story alone in such circumstances, especially that involve programs and an implementing team. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very important to be part of the process from the word go up to the point of success. And that I cannot do as an individual communication person. The project officers who are in the field, the project assistants, the different staff who are in communities each and every other day. To add, they are basically our eyes. They are basically like our ambassador down there in the field. Because without them, there's no story for us to tell.
I guess the key takeaway or one of the key takeaways from our conversation today is that storytelling is a collaborative effort especially for raising the village. Communications is always a joint effort between the staff on the field and those of us who are doing the creative work behind the scenes. I want to really thank you for sharing your experiences and your anecdotes and your interview today with me. Any sort of last things you want to add or you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. I think you've said it all. Teamwork. I want to appreciate the team, both management, implementing, finance, for the prompt support, because there are a lot of people that are behind one success story. We will continue doing this work to ensure that every person in the last mile communities has a better life, because we're here to transform lives.
And we're also here to have strong connection with the communities and build long-lasting relationships.
Thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. And for those who are listening that are interested, you can go on our website to our news section to follow our stories, also follow us on social media, and you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter, Last Mile Adventures, on our website as well. Those are just some of the platforms where you can read some of the stories that we've been sort of talking about throughout this broadcast. And thank you once again, Mudasirr. Thank you everyone who's listening, and see you next time.